This is the Tristan Law Show. If it's your first time here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Tristan Law, semi-retired pro wrestler, and today, I'm your host. Thanks so much for joining me today. And you know, Wednesday night, I did something that was, let's say it's kind of a little weird. And look, it's not what you think. Look, it's PG. My mother could be watching, so I got to make sure I behave myself. But what I really did was that, Wednesday night, I watched Dynamite. I watched AEW Dynamite. I watched it from front to back. I watched it because I normally don't watch AEW Dynamite. AEW Dynamite on Wednesday was all about the chaos, championships, storytelling. And, one of the things I was asking myself was, has AEW finally figured out who they are? So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at AEW Dynamite from Wednesday, and we are going to see if it has changed, if they have found their identity. We're also going to see as well, too, is, can I convince you to watch AEW? Will I watch AEW next week? Will I watch it tonight for Collision? I don't know. But some of the highlights from AEW Dynamite on Wednesday were Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay's team up. The new tag team champions, the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, and Jeff Jarrett's promo. He had a promo little thing in the ring as well, too, so he's got a little match coming up next week. And then we had Edge. No. We don't call him Edge no more. We call him Cope. It was Cope versus Pac. So that was the main event on AEW Dynamite. But let's break it all down. Let's talk about what worked, what didn't work, and how this might shape AEW's future. So AEW kicked it off pretty hot. They started off with an interview with Tony Schiavone, and he had Will Ospreay in there, and then Kenny Omega came out. You definitely knew that they were not friends, that they were not feeling each other, they weren't liking each other. And then Don Callis and the whole family came out and became a whole entire thing. And it was pretty much 2 men versus 4 fighting the entire time. It culminated with both men standing on top of the structure and calling out that there's going to be a big match coming up in Grand Slam. It's going to be Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay against Fletcher and Tashida. This is new to me. AEW is new to me. And I hope that if this is new to me, I hope that it's new to you as well, too. And maybe you're convinced, like, you know what? Maybe I'll check it out. I think that it was a little unbelievable to me, that segment, because it's like these 2 men fought off 4 guys. And if you fought off these 4 guys by yourself, how the hell do we expect them to not just dominate these 2 men, right? So now it's like, what does Don Callis' family have to do? Do they have to go ahead and get, 2 more people to make it like 6 on 2? I don't know. But the fans that were watching this live, they loved it. They loved it so much. It was something that they were really into. And that's the thing that I like about AEW. I always say about AEW is that it speaks to a certain demographic. It speaks to people that like pure wrestling, and they're not really so much for all the gaga, all the having a good time and the playing around. What they're really into is just like the wrestling. They came for wrestling, and that's what they want. They don't want to watch people do crazy things, but I like that AEW even sprinkles that in as well, too. Was this something that would have worked in WWE? I don't think this is something that would have worked in WWE, because I'm sure somebody would have sat around and go, well, there's 4 men out there, and how are these 2 men just fighting off the other 4? Maybe like if they had fought off the 4 men, the 2 first men, and when the other 2 came, they would have to run, but that's really heelish. But I'm sure that somebody somewhere in the WWE would be like, oh, well, that's not going to work for us. But in AEW, they probably went, our fans don't care about this. It's not something that they really care about. So I think that was pretty cool that we were able to see that. Will I watch that match at Grand Slam? It's something that I'm interested in. Was it like watching Raw? No, it wasn't like watching Raw, and it was totally different. And so far, I would say, you know what? I enjoyed myself so far. I normally find myself watching AEW and I'm like, God, what am I watching? I'm like, is there something else that I can watch? But watching on this night, I didn't feel that at all. But, you know, we're going to transition from wild brawls that there was a championship match at AEW Dynamite and Wednesday. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's a compliment. It makes me feel like I'm doing a great job. We've got a lot of people subscribing to the Tristan Law Show and interacting, you know, while it's live and stuff like that. So I appreciate that you're here hanging out. You know, whether you're watching live or on demand, you don't even understand. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. So there's a tag team match. It was Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. They defeated Private Party to win the AEW Tag Team Championships. So when I'm analyzing that match, I felt like there was a lack of build leading into that match, because like 2 weeks before, it was the Private Party were doing like their little like segment on the stage, you know, where you can come where they were having like their private party, and then the Hurt Business kind of like crashed it, but they didn't really like get physical. But they had a match with Mark Briscoe, with one of the Briscoe brothers. And then, like, next week it transitions into a 3-man tag team, a 6-man tag team match where MVP was in the corner with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, and then on the other side it was Briscoe with Private Party. And it's just like, then the next following week, which was this week, they had the tag team match, and then the Private Party just lost the belts. I felt like there was a lack of story going into that. I felt that one of the things I learned when I wrestled is that if you don't really make nobody, you don't really beat anybody. So for me, like, I felt like they could have stretched that story out maybe at least another 1 or 2 weeks. Maybe give the Hurt Business, like, well, maybe give Private Party like one credible win. Maybe be like some kind of like screw job or something like that, to where it's not like a clean win. And Hurt Business is like, you know what, but you didn't really beat us. You got to come back again. You know, but still give the Private Party the win. But just like after that one match, Private Party is no longer AEW Tag Team Champions. I think this would have been more impactful if it was a longer feud. I think that it would have been something that they could have definitely got a lot of mileage out of, that they could have built up the Private Party, and that the Private Party could definitely circle back later on, whether Hurt Business or Hurt Syndicate is the Tag Team Champions or not. But, you know, speaking of veteran moves, we got to move on to the Last Outlaw. Oh, you don't know who the Last Outlaw is? I didn't know who the Last Outlaw was either. So the Last Outlaw is Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett has been wrestling since Jesus was a child. I don't think I know Jeff Jarrett, Double J Jeff Jarrett. Remember him from the WWE? My name is Jeff Jarrett, JEFFJARRETT. That's Jeff Jarrett. That's me. You know, that's a little thing that he used to do back in the day. So now he still wrestles, and he wrestles in AEW, calls himself the Last Outlaw, and he's married to Kurt Angle. Not Kurt Angle. He's not married to Kurt Angle. He's married to his wife. You know, his ex-wife, because, you know, a man can't have two. Different thing for another day. But either way, one of the things that the way that segment started was in a backstage interview, and the announcer was getting ready to ask Jeff Jarrett some questions, and then Karen Jarrett, comes along and pretty much just shoos away, you know, the announcer, and says that she has to talk to Jeff personally. Here's the thing that kind of brought me out of the whole entire thing. If you got to talk to him personally, why is the camera still there? Why is the camera still there? Sometimes for me, it's the really teeny tiny things that really matter. To me, it's like what should have happened, the way that segment could have went, is that she could have took him and dragged him away from the camera, from the microphone, from everything else, right? And then, like, when Jeff Jarrett comes out to do that promo, that's when Jeff Jarrett could say, hey, you know what? You know, this is when, this is what me and my wife had a conversation, or she told me that I shouldn't do this, and blah, 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 but I'm going to do it either way because a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Okay, I get that. One of the other things that kind of brings me out of pro wrestling as well, too, is like, okay, so if the announcer comes up, right, to interview you, and he's holding a microphone in front of your mouth, when he walks away, how is it that we can still hear the conversation between two other people? So for me, that's where I kind of lose it, to where it kind of suspends disbelief for me when I'm watching pro wrestling. Like, look, I know pro wrestling is pro wrestling, right? But one of the things that I is too, when I watch regular television, I don't like my intelligence insulted, right? I want to be able to suspend disbelief. So right now I'm watching The Equalizer on Netflix, and I'm trying to stomach through the first episode. And the reason why I'm watching is like, there's one episode where Queen Latifah is running out of the building because she discovered a bomb and it's getting ready to blow up. And the way that this woman was running out the building, I'm like, you know what? If I saw a bomb in a building and I had an opportunity to run out there, I am hauling ass. The way that Queen Latifah was running, she was running like, I don't know, like, oh, let me run over here real quick so I can go grab, I forgot something in the car. Let me go run and go get that real quick and run back. Like, no, I feel like there's no sense of urgency. So that's where I kind of lose like my, you know, my level of disbelief when it comes to pro wrestling. But Jeff Jarrett came out there, and Jeff Jarrett, I think he's biting off a lot more than he can chew. He's got a little verbal altercation with MJF. MJF is like half his age, and I think MJF is definitely the future of pro wrestling. If you're watching pro wrestling and you don't know who MJF is, check out AEW Dynamite. Check out AEW Collision. Just check out AEW programming, period. Just Google him. Find out who he is. I definitely feel that he is the future of pro wrestling. But Jeff Jarrett comes out there and he calls out Jon Moxley, which was Dean Ambrose in AEW. I mean, sorry, in WWE. And pretty much like my whole thing was that Claudio Castagnoli, I can't ever say that guy's name right, but he was known as Cesaro in the WWE. He came out and they did a little like, you know, little back and forth promo. And pretty much Claudio left Jeff Jarrett lying. And then Jeff Jarrett says to Claudio, you know, I want the AEW championship. And in order for me to get to Jon Moxley, I got to get through you. Then fine, do that. I don't like how Claudio was just able to speak for the boss. You know, I don't think that Jon Moxley's turning down anybody that wants an opportunity at the AEW championship, right? But it's just like, how is it that you're able to come out there and say, yeah, you know, I'm going to do this. Maybe, you know, Claudio could say, you know what, I have a blessing, or let me go ahead and talk to Jon Moxley first. And depending on what Jon Moxley says, I'm going to let Tony Khan know whether we're going to have this match or not. That was something that kind of was a disconnect for me too when it came into the little segment in AEW Dynamite. But if you like what I'm doing right now, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It was my first time watching AEW Dynamite in a long time. I watched on Max. I did not watch on traditional television. And you know, I even got a note for that as well too, because like my whole thing is just like AEW Dynamite. You know what? I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm going to tease that. We're going to talk about that a little bit towards the end because it fits in to the end. So something else too that I really enjoyed, it was Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet. They have a little feud, but they didn't have a match. So pretty much Swerve Strickland had a match against AR Fox, and it was interrupted by Ricochet's antics. Prince Nana is like one of the parts that are like sports. He's like the sports entertainment to AEW. It's very minimal. It's not major because the fans don't want sports entertainment when they're watching AEW. That's not what they want. So Swerve Strickland has this song that he goes, it's like, when I swerve, when I drive, and whenever, I should stop singing, right? Because people told me on TikTok I should stop singing. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at The Tristan Law Show. But like, you know, Prince Nana comes out, he does this thing like, when I drive, when I swerve, when I drive, and I, and he goes this thing when he throws his hands up. You know, like it's really entertaining. Like I find myself doing it when I was watching the television show as well too. Anybody watching us back with no volume is like, what's wrong with that guy? What is he doing? Look, I'm having a great time. And so is Prince Nana. So pretty much they tell us before the match that there's some kind of altercation with Ricochet and Swerve Strickland the week before. Ricochet had scissors and he cut Swerve Strickland open last week on his forehead, and there was a lot of blood, and it was like a very messy situation. And then this week, so okay, AEW has like two entrances. They have one entrance where the heels come out, and they have one entrance where the good guys come out, right? The heels are the bad guys, and the baby faces are the good guys. So they have separate entrances where they came out. So obviously, Swerve Strickland and AR Fox came through the good guy side to start their match, right? Because like it just shows it's just like a match with just like between two friends just having a match just to have a match. The match didn't really matter. So Swerve Strickland, Ricochet eventually comes out through the heel entrance, and then Prince Nana sees him and chases him through the entrance. And the first thing I thought in my mind is, why would he chase him into the heel entrance? Because the way that they want us to believe it is that there's two separate entrances in AEW. There's two separate locker rooms. When you go into the back room, into the backstage, all the heels are on one side and all the baby faces are on the other side. Let me go ahead and ruin this for you. That's not true. They're all in one locker room. I did, however, wrestle at one show at the Monster Factory way back in the day in Jersey, and they had two separate locker rooms. You knew who your opponent was, but you weren't able to talk about anything until you got out to the ring. I guess it was a skill that I didn't know that I needed, but it worked, I guess. But so back to the match, thinking about the part where I had to suspend the disbelief again. I'm like, why would he run back there? There should be nothing but danger back there. Like, you're not in your turf. I'm like, that's not going to work. So eventually they cut to the back, and after Swerve Strickland wins, they cut to the back and you show that Prince Nana's now in a precarious situation. That Ricochet still has those golden scissors and he's holding them to the forehead. You know what? I love that. I love that because it explained that plot hole. Why is it that Prince Nana is able to run into the area to where it's no man's land? We're talking about Blood and Crips. He's a Blood and he ran into Crip territory. So what's going to happen? They should hand his ass to him. However, Ricochet threatened him with the scissors and then let him go. I think it worked. I think that worked. I think that in that whole entire match, it was definitely sports entertainment and pure wrestling. And I think AEW does a great job balancing that. But they speak to their fans. Their fans, pure AEW fans, don't like sports entertainment. And maybe that's the reason why I can't connect with AEW. Because, like, one of the things for me is just, like, I'm a tried and true WWE fan because I grew up in New York for the majority of my life. And what we grew up on was WWF. You know, like, WCW was a treat. When I grew up and I found out a little bit older, like in the mid-90s, like, oh, wait, there's something else other than WWF to watch. And I started watching WCW. Then I'm like, wait a minute, there's like ECW, and I could watch that late at night at 2:00 on public access when I should be asleep, but my mother's asleep, so she thinks I'm asleep too, but I was really up. And then I saw that there was Lucha Libre, and I'm sitting here watching AAA. Yo, it was a good time. But like, my pro wrestling has always been built on WWF, and that's the kind of wrestling that I like. So we're going to transition now from wild feuds to musical promos. When I'm telling you this episode of Dynamite, the reason why I probably love this is because I feel like it probably had a little bit of something for everybody. So, you know, you got Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, the boss. But now she's the CEO of AEW, or maybe she's the CEO of herself. Maybe she's self-employed. Maybe that's what she's trying to say. She's a CEO because she's self-employed, because Tony Khan is a CEO. Anyway, so we see her walking. She's got more belts than Jesus got disciples around her body, you know, because, you know, she's really becoming the belt collector. And for me, I want to say this about Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné hasn't resonated with me. When Mercedes Moné was in the WWE, whether she was heel or face or a good girl or a bad girl, you know, I still loved her, especially when she was a bad girl. And my whole thing was that now that she's in AEW, I just can't resonate with her. And I don't think it's her. I don't think it's her at all. I just think it's the team. You know, like, I can still be a Knicks fan or a Brooklyn Nets fan, but like, if Michael Jordan plays on the team, if I didn't like Michael Jordan before, I don't care where he goes. Like, you know, it's just not my thing. It's not my thing. You know, I watch it. I don't think that Mercedes Moné has a bad match. I think that she definitely worked her way up through the indies. And she definitely got that A1 top-notch training from the WWE. She understands the WWE style, and she could definitely put the sports entertainment in there. But I think that she's in a great spot right now because she actually gets to wrestle. She gets to show the world who she is, and I think that's something that everybody should check out. So anyway, so you see Mercedes Moné, she's walking down, and she got more belts than her, like I said, than Jesus got disciples. And pretty much, you know, she goes to, and Renee Paquette, is there to getting ready to interview her, one of the backstage interviewers getting ready to ask her a question. But all of a sudden, Harley Cameron comes around and she's just playing a song. And she's playing the song and she's saying that, you know, she's from Australia and she wants to challenge Mercedes Moné for one of the 10,000 belts that she has around her belt. Maybe it's the TBS championship. I don't know. I wasn't really paying too much attention to that. But I loved the song that Harley Cameron was singing. It was very catchy and it was very sports entertainment-y. And that's, again, maybe why I like the show, because they sprinkled a little bit of sports entertainment in there, right? I like my sports with a little bit of entertainment as well, too. And I think I was able to get that from this episode of AEW Dynamite. It adds a little fun touch to the show. It's more than just the wrestling. Don't get it wrong. I love a good wrestling match, right? But I just need a little bit more. Like, for example, like I like watching shows with my kid, right? I like watching Bluey. Bluey's his thing. And he always sings the show, Bluey, Daddy, Bluey. Fine, we're going to watch Bluey. So we go ahead and we watch Bluey. But the thing that I like about Bluey is that the parents are so annoyed by Bluey and her sister. They're just so annoyed. And you can see it sometimes. But the kids don't get it, right? So for me, that's where my entertainment lies. I can just watch Bluey with my son being with me or with him not being with me. I'm not going to lie. And it's like, that's where I find entertainment value. I need more than what they're giving on the television. And that's why I probably like WWE so much, because they give me more, right? It's more than just the wrestling. I need more than wrestling, right? I need more than just mashed potatoes on the plate. I need a nice rare piece of steak as well, too. I think that this feud, though, that if more people start paying attention to it, it could definitely elevate AEW's women division now on a global stage, because I did go back and watch some Harley Cameron matches, and I think Harley Cameron's doing a pretty darn good job in AEW. And mix her in the ring with Mercedes Moné, you know, give them a few credible matches against each other, and then swap the title. I think that Harley Cameron is definitely one of the futures of AEW. We're going to talk about the main event in AEW's Bold Identity. We're going to go ahead and we're going to look into that question. Has AEW finally found their identity? But I'm asking you to subscribe. Subscribe, and if you're watching this live or on demand right now at any time, because it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday that I'm doing this, you know, go ahead and hit that like button. I'm only live Tuesdays and Fridays at noon Eastern. I think next week you're probably going to get 3 episodes. We're definitely going to do a recap on WWE Royal Rumble 2025, and we're actually going to do a show. There's 2 shows that I'm thinking about doing as well too. Instead of that, and with that, I'm thinking about doing, like, you know, surprises or who I think is going to win the Royal Rumble. And I want to do an episode about Jade Cargill. I've been thinking about her for a long time, because the last time we saw her on WWE television, she was left laying, and we don't know who. It's almost like, you remember back in the day when you watched The Simpsons, who killed Mr. Burns, who shot Mr. Burns? So, you know, we're going to have to watch that episode to find out exactly who I think. And I want to hear from you who attacked Jade Cargill. So make sure you subscribe, because we're going to look at that. So the main event, right, was Cope versus Pac. Who the hell is Cope? Okay, I'm going to tell you who Cope is. Cope is Adam Copeland. You know who that is? Oh, no, you don't know who that is? Okay, Cope is Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland, you know who Adam Copeland? Adam Copeland is the rated R superstar Edge from the WWE. And, like, here's my thing. I understand that Adam Copeland couldn't take the name Edge from the WWE due to international copyrights, and because the WWE owns the intellectual property, the name Edge, right? But his name is Adam Copeland. He owns that. So he came to AEW, and I'm transitioning from calling him, even though I don't watch, I still read and keep up with what's going on a very, like, loose basis, right? Because I'm an Edge fan. I always say my 3 favorite wrestlers of all time were Randy Orton, Edge, and the Game Triple H. My 3 favorite wrestlers of all time. And I'm transitioning to calling this guy Adam Copeland instead of looking at the TV. I'm like, oh, look, that's Edge. And now the guy go ahead and call himself Cope. Let me tell you something. His mama called him Cope. His daddy called him Cope. I'm not calling him Cope. I'm calling him Edge. Okay, we're just going to call him Edge because I'm afraid that he might go ahead and change his name again. Thank you so much. Look, I appreciate the applause. Appreciate the applause because it took me so long to try to figure out what the hell am I going to call this guy? What am I going to call him? So we're just going to call him Edge, and we're just going to move on. So Edge versus Pac. This match exceeded the runtime. AEW Dynamite is 2 hours long. That's what it's slotted for on regular television. I think, and it ran over. It ran till about maybe 10:10, 10:08, maybe 10:15, around that 8 range there. And it was a phenomenal match between Edge and Pac. Or Pac, as they say. I don't know. I'm calling him Pac, okay? Because I grew up in the Bronx and we like Tupac. That's who I know. So, like, my whole thing was that I feel that even though I'm watching on Max, it should be a different experience altogether. The reason why I feel that should be a different experience is because eventually, if you get a lot of people watching on Max, then, like, you know, you don't have to worry. Max, HBO Max, doesn't have to worry about getting money from the cable company because they already cut out the middleman and they're collecting the money directly from the viewer. You cut out the middleman altogether. So I feel that what they used to do back in the day was that when WCW used to run over, they used to say, oh my God, WCW Nitro's out of time. Tune in next week on Nitro to see what happened. You're like on a cliffhanger. You're like, oh my God, what really happened after the wrestling show went off the air? So you had to tune in next week to see what happened, right? But damn, I'm choking. I'm dying over here. Give me a second. But in this day of social media, you can't keep nothing secret. That's another episode I might do about keeping secrets in the pro wrestling industry. The thing is that in this day and age with social media, everybody wants to be a news reporter. Everybody wants to be out first. Everybody's running around with their phone. They want to take pictures. They want to take videos. They want to be the person to say, I broke the news first, right? When you're watching news, CNN, Fox News, your regular, local broadcast news, sometimes you're watching video that was shot by a regular person like me and you, right? It's not by the news company, the news agency. So everybody wants to break the news first, right? So that doesn't work. So now we're in this age to where we have streaming platforms, we have a simulcast. What I think should happen is that on TNT or TBS, whatever channel that Dynamite or Collision wants to come on that week, they should have a hard time. If the show is over at 10, let it end at 10. Oh, you want to see what else happened? Now you need to go ahead and watch it on Max. The reason why I say that they should be able to watch it on Max is because, you know what? There's nothing that's coming on after Max. There's no basketball game. There's no hockey game. There's no nothing that's coming on after the fact that's going to make it that you can't watch it, right? That they have to go. So I think with that said, that they should do it where, you know what? Oh my God, AEW Dynamite, we're running out of time, but still in the ring, Edge and Pac, to find out what's happening, switch over to Max right now. You might have a lot of people buying Max, right? Because right now, Netflix is talking about they seeing huge growth in their fourth quarter. And the reason why they see a lot of growth in their fourth quarter, if you ask me, is because everybody was getting ready to watch WWE Raw on Netflix. Now Netflix talking about they're raising the price again. Look, streaming is tomorrow. Streaming is the way of how we are going to live. Traditional TV is dying. If you ask me, YouTube, stuff like this from independent creators like me, the next big TV star, movie star, the next big personality, the next big director, editor, all that stuff is going to be on YouTube. There's going to be a time that they're going to release a movie and it's going to be exclusively on YouTube. It's not that lucrative yet, but it's going to be. It's going to be something that people are going to go crazy for. If I had the money, I would shoot a movie and just release it on YouTube, a blockbuster movie as well too. Obviously, we put a couple ads in there and stuff like that as well too, but imagine the amount of money that they could make. They would break YouTube. Streaming is for the future. And I think that AEW, I don't know, look, I know they still have to meet their contractual agreement with the traditional television, but like, it's 10 o'clock. That's what the TV guide says. The TV guide says 10 o'clock. So if it's 10 o'clock, give me more on Max. Let's see. We got a message in the chat. Dominique McGregor, she chimes in and says, cliffhangers keeps the audience craving more. It's a smart strategy to boost viewership. Yeah. Thank you so much for your comment. Let's go ahead and hit the heart for you. Where the heart's at. Boom. Thank you so much for your comment on that. And you know, like it's even like when you're doing radio or when you're doing podcasting, right? You have to tease, right? I told everybody early in the beginning we're going to talk about, has AEW finally found their identity? And that's a question that I'm getting ready to answer for you in just a little bit. But let's finish that analysis of that Edge, because we're calling him Edge, we ain't calling him Cope, versus Pac. So Edge is thriving right now in AEW because he doesn't have to worry about the sports entertainment team. Same exact thing as Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné. They get to actually wrestle, right? They get AEW is providing these WWE wrestlers who are born and bred in WWE. It's giving them a different environment into which they can just go out there and just wrestle. There's nothing else that they have to do but just wrestle. And I think that's fantastic because it gives them a new look on their career. If they ever do come back to WWE, they're going to have more. They're going to have a little bit more experience when it comes to the just wrestling part. And then when they sandwich that together with the sports entertainment, I think they're going to be out of this world. Will Edge go back in WWE? I think Edge deserves one last run in the WWE. And that's and I think if it's done right, it's going to have to. If it's done right, it's going to work. I think Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, does she have a run in WWE? Yeah, I think that she has a bad taste in her mouth from the previous regime, and I think that when she definitely gets back to WWE, which I think is her home, you can still probably call her Sasha Banks because that's who she was in the WWE, right? I think that when she finally gets back, or maybe call her Mercedes Moné, I don't know, right? Let her be the boss, Mercedes Moné. But when she goes back to WWE, I think that's where she belongs. I think it's that based on everything that I'm hearing about the WWE now, that she's definitely going to like working back there. But yeah, so that match was great. You know, it ended with Edge getting choked up in the end. You know, so but yeah, that was definitely a good match. But yeah, they also, one of the things that I noticed as well too was they showed the wins and losses, you know, for the wrestlers while they came out doing AEW. And like my whole thing is like, the wins and losses don't really matter. Like we know it's pro wrestling, right? Maybe they're doing the wins and losses to try to be different from WWE, so that when they come out, I'm like, oh, this guy's won the last 5 matches in 2025. But like, why does it matter? If that person has won the most matches in 2025, are we giving them these championship opportunities that they deserve? Right? Why is it that we're having number 1 contender matches? Why is it that we're having, you know, matches that determine who is the person that could be next in line for an AEW championship when, like, you just look at the person with the wins and losses. Looking back at the segment between Mercedes Moné and Harley Cameron, how is it that Harley Cameron's going to sit there and play the guitar to try to woo Mercedes Moné into having a match with her? Tony Khan should be like, no, that match is not happening because you're not the lead person right now. You're not the number 1 woman, you know, with the best ranking, so you don't deserve that match. Maybe now if you get into the ring and you beat the number 1 person, then you can earn that opportunity, but until then, nah, I don't think that works. That's something that that I looked at when I was looking at that Pac versus Edge match. So here's the question. Has AEW truly found its identity after 5 years? I think that in the first year of AEW's existence, the first 2 years, they had to live through the pandemic. They were a brand new company and had to figure out how to survive. And one of the things is like, you're trying to figure out who you are. Are you a little bit sports entertainment-y? No, because your fans don't really want that because they can watch WWE. Are you like diehard like wrestling? Well, no, because your fans wanted that. They'd go ahead and they'd watch New Japan Pro Wrestling because they're already watching that. So what they do is that they've given them an identity to where you get your solid pro wrestling matches, and they sprinkle in the identity as well too of the sports entertainment. They put the win-loss record on there. They have the separate entrances. I think the separate entrances for the good guys and the bad guys, I think it just works. And the reason why I think it works as well too is because somebody like me who's watching, and I'm not a long-time watcher, I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this person's coming out the left side. They're already heel. Oh, this person's coming out the right side. They're a babyface. But then you have people like John Moxley and his crew. They come through the crowd. So it's like, so what are they? Are they kind of like in between? I don't know. But has AEW found its identity? I think so. I think AEW is going to be around for a long time. I don't think that AEW is going anywhere. I think that I enjoyed watching AEW Dynamite. I guess I had nothing to do on a Wednesday night and it just worked. I'm looking forward to watching it again. I'm looking forward to Jeff Jarrett versus Claudio Castagnoli on next week's episode of Dynamite. And tonight on AEW Collision, it's going to be Powerhouse Hobbs versus Big Bill. Two big-ass guys in the ring, and it's going to be slapping and beating each other up. I'm looking forward to watching that. One of my key takeaways from the whole entire event was Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, the Chaos. I think the Chaos just worked for everybody that was watching. It didn't work for me because I'm not a hardcore AEW fan, but I can see why an AEW fan would like that. They were hot. They were electric doing that whole entire thing. Because, that from watching or from listening to that promo, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, they pretty much were not friends. I think that AEW did a really good job telling stories, the backstories between the wrestlers so that people would understand what's exactly going on. Congratulations to the new AEW Tag Team Champions, the Hurt Business. I love to see gold on black, okay? I love to see gold on black, and I think that that episode there definitely did it for me. So I'm not going to give this, okay, I got two hands, right? Most of us have two hands. I got two hands. And the amount of thumbs that I'm going to give AEW, I'm just going to give AEW one thumb up. One thumb up for that episode. I want to watch to see if they can still, capture the moment. Thanks so much for watching me today. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Follow me on the socials at Tristan Law Show. We put up a lot of small, short-form content up there. And you can follow me on Instagram or, on Threads at The Real Big Tris. That's me. Thanks so much for joining. I'm looking forward to seeing you this Tuesday, live at noon, here on YouTube. I'm Tristan Law, and this was The Tristan Law Show. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.